Howdy y'all, it is Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. How you doing? Last night was the last Mandalorian episode for Season 3. I want to give you my thoughts, spoilers ahead, just a heads up warning, right? This is going to be spoilers. First off though, I want to just say, overall, this episode, the visuals are awesome, right? The visuals in the episode before and this one are fantastic. Got to say that. Like, this is some good stuff. It really does hit home as far as great visuals to really stand out. I'm impressed that this is a TV show. I can definitely tell where some money went was the visuals. All right, so now some breakdown of kind of what we saw throughout this episode. Right away, there are Mandalorians, or there's one Mandalorian sent back to the ships to warn them, and actually to warn them, to tell them to abandon the ships, to get down there and to abandon the fleet, to land. And the guy goes up there and does. He sends everybody to the ground except for himself and puts essentially the light cruiser on autopilot-ish and auto-firing, and then directs it later on to the ground to hit the Empire base. Which, hitting the Empire base, cool. I am so confused why they immediately go, abandon the fleet. They have fighters, Mandalorian fighters. They have, granted, troop transports that, okay, send those down. They have a light cruiser which has weaponry that was used for the Empire. And the amount of starships that we see, it's only like 3 or 4 bombers. And then maybe 10 to 15 TIE fighters at best. And they go, abandon! What? Why? The logic is just dumb. Some of the logic in this episode was Star Wars level of dumb. And that, it's so aggravating because the concepts that were presented here were fantastic. The concepts were really, really good. But the actual real true stuff that was shown, it wasn't good. It was quite poor. Okay? Very much quite poor. Very negative to me, and that's frustrating to me because I wanted to enjoy it because the last episode was really good and did not have major plot issues, and then this just does for no good reason, right? Pretty quickly we see Din Djarin being led away, the Mandalorian. I'm still gonna say he is, even though it's a Bo-Katan show. Led away because he's been captured, and then he fights back, and right as he's about to lose to the white troopers are in Beskar armor, the white jet troopers that are dark troopers. Great name for an all-white suit, but sure. Grogu appears out of nowhere. Now granted, is he force sensitive and can use force? Yes, so he could detect where he was, sure, but last we saw him, he was with the Mandalorians, and he just somehow makes it to them. And it's cute once he's there, but it's just bizarre. Like, how did you get through everything? Because that means there's got to be guards. We don't see any of that. We see nothing. Also, the Mandalorians, they go, all right, we got to escape, and we need to regroup. And they leave, and from what I remember from the previous episode, there was at least 20 of them in that trap. There's 10 or less that leave. And the numbers change as you see them in different scenes before the other Mandalorians show up to help them. Correct me if I'm wrong, go watch the episode and see. But to me, it looked like they kept changing the amount of troops. Now, granted, some could stay outside and guard and keep an eye out, sure. But it just seemed really inconsistent on how many Mandalorians had survived. So when they leave that hole, it's like, oh, there's a lot of you that died that apparently I did not see. And maybe I did miss it, but it seemed like an awful lot that disappeared. So anyway, The new Dark Trooper armor is very inconsistent. It will block shots, and then randomly they'll just fall over dead. And you're like, I didn't see them get hit in a joint. Could have happened, but it didn't seem like that was actually what happened. This also is an interesting thing because it seems like Beskar is supposed to be resistant to, obviously, lightsabers, and blasters. But what's interesting is later on, like, Moff Gideon gets hit, and he's like, and so does Din Djarin, like, they're staggering back as though they've been actually shot and feeling pain. What is this? Like, I thought Beskar armor was immune to that, and we've seen it be immune to that. We've seen Din Djarin get hit, and at best just kind of glance back a little bit, like just the energy hit, but not actually act like he's hurt. Because he shouldn't be. These are the things that don't add up in this episode. It's stuff like this. It's just small little details over and over and over again that do not add up. Now, R5-D4 is called in to help Mando, and it's a cute scene. He flies down there, uses the jets on the sides of his feet, just like R2-D2. Okay, cool. So apparently this is somewhat standard equipment for astromech droids. Awesome. Okay, fine. He gets down there, everything's good, and he actually helps open the red gates that we've seen that have 2 dark troopers behind each red gate, energy gate. And it's literally, guys, like a video game level. It really is. It is a video game level played out in front of you. Like, okay, here's your mini boss fight before the boss fight to get you ready before the save checkpoint. That's what it was. Did it look cool? Yes. But was it a video game fight? Absolutely. Now, that being said, what really gets weird is R5-D4 is discovered by some mouse droids. A mouse droid who turns on his sirens and gets shocked by R5-D4 and runs away. And instead of any troops coming to the rescue, and this is where I don't understand at all, it's like, where are the other troops in this base? So this is apparently a very important Imperial base that's hidden, and there's no troops apparently. The mouse droid shows up with more mouse droids. More mouse droids. It is that dumb. It is that dumb. And they bump into R5-D4, and then R5-D4 flies away. After he helps Mando with stuff, he flies away and knocks one off the edge. What is the point? Are you seriously telling me that mouse droids have no purpose? The answer is yes. Yes, you are. You have done that. You have literally said a mouse droid just gets other mouse droids and blares at you, and no guards will come. They do not go and get guards, people with blasters, to put a stop to whatever is actually going on. Should R5-D4 have been sacrificed in that moment? Well, yeah, it would have made sense. Okay? Of all the sacrifices of that episode, that would have been the one that made sense. That he overcame his robot brain fear and stayed there to help until he was destroyed. Cool, right? We would have had a great conclusion to R5-D4's story. That should have been the sacrifice, and instead the sacrifice we got was the dumbest thing ever, okay? Because once Mando gets past the mini boss fights, he goes to fight Moff Gideon, and then Moff Gideon has his 3 Red Guard guys show up and lead Grogu away. Grogu has a scene to fight them, or at least really just survive them for a while. They are really just mini bosses again too, just aggravating. And Mando tries to fight Moff Gideon. Oh, sorry, they do also go through a room where they see lots of clones of Moff Gideon, and one of them wakes up, and it was funny because my kids actually jumped and got freaked out, and I jumped a little bit whenever he opened his eyes. So that was kind of funny because Din Djarin does destroy all of those tubes, or at least just empty the water out of them, or whatever the goo is. Okay, it's cool. We kind of figured that Moff Gideon would be cloning himself, and Moff Gideon does own up to that he's trying to lead to the point where people can use the Force, and he's succeeded, and they just didn't get a chance now to survive yet. It's interesting. I just wish they would never have gone down this path at this point with Star Wars in Disney stuff. As Mando's getting his butt kicked, because apparently Moff Gideon's armor is not actually just armor, it is a powered suit as well. You can hear the power and the whirring of motors and stuff, which is cool, and it looks really good. And so he's getting his butt kicked, and then Bo-Katan shows up and goes, "I'll handle him, you go save the baby." And he does, and it's just like, oh my gosh, here's Bo-Katan to the rescue again. And thankfully it's not how it actually concludes, but it just felt like that for the moment. It's just stupid. And eventually Bo-Katan, pulls out Darksaber and fights with him, and he has not a vibro sword, but some sort of shock staff with the purple energy from like the droids that guard General Grievous in episode 3, right? It's cool. At one point though, during that fight, well, okay, side note, Mando and Grogu, they save each other. They defeat the red guys by shooting them in their armor, which you're telling me, like, okay, so they don't have Beskar armor, but they're your mini bosses. Makes sense. Whatever. This is silly. This episode, it thinks it's really smart, and the overarching story here actually could be, but unfortunately the little plot points that lead to it don't add up. Like the mouse droids, because they're stupid. Bo-Katan is fighting with Moff Gideon, and then he gets her hand in his and uses his powered suit and crushes the Darksaber. And it falls to the ground, and it sounds like a cheap Walmart plastic toy from the $2 aisle. Right? Like, it is cheap. It had no sound of like really metal. It sounded like plastic bits with maybe some cheap aluminum type metal mixed in at best. And like, you destroyed the Darksaber. This thing that we got introduced to in the Clone Wars. Yeah, that's right. And it was a great part of the lore and how old it has been. Can it be repaired? I mean, technically, yes. But that just ticks me off. Like, of all the things to sacrifice in this episode, that's what you chose? That's stupid. She needs that technically to lead her people, and then everything's fine, apparently, even though she doesn't have the Darksaber, which, that was a big deal. They literally threw a fit when she didn't have the Darksaber. And now it's, that's fine. You can take off your helmet. You don't need the Darksaber. You don't need anything. We just follow you because you took Mandalore for us. Yeah, for 45, 50 of you. Congrats. You have a whole planet that's 45, 50 of you. You don't have a whole planet. You're going to be lucky to survive a week with how we've seen the Mandalorians behave. For crying out loud, there's a few fighters coming to our light cruiser that we have fighters with. Everybody abandon ship, we're gonna die. Oh my gosh. Alright. Yeah, we already talked about blasters hurting the person inside of Beskar armor, even when it's just hitting the Beskar armor. It does not make sense. At the very end of like the big epic fight stuff, the light cruiser does come down into the base. It looks to be that Moff Gideon gets destroyed, but he's also wearing a powered Beskar armor, which would mean it's sealed like Darth Vader's suit, which means it could absorb so much more than other things. Is he actually dead? Don't know. I would actually say probably not. But they're also going to be like, even if he comes back, it's just going to be a clone or something. But he really shouldn't be. But it's funny, Bo-Katan tries to shield herself, Din Djarin, and Grogu with that little arm pauldron shield, which would barely protect her head, right? It's hilarious because you're like, I'm gonna save everybody, and you're like, you're not even gonna save your body, just your head will survive. And congrats. I mean, it's Star Wars, so technically you could come back as a cyborg somehow, but it's hilarious because you know she's dead. And then the scene resolves, and actually Grogu has used the Force to stop it, and they're in this little Force bubble with the flames going all around them. It is a very, very cool scene. Okay, there are cool scenes. Like, that's a neat one. So after we have that, we get this like thing of the forge gets lit, Vizsla's son gets to become a Mandalorian full on. Let's see what else. Mando tries to get Grogu to be able to be that, but then the armor's like, he can't talk, so he can't be an apprentice. Well, then I adopt him as my son. He's my apprentice. Okay. And they're like, this is the way. You're like, you just told them no. You didn't like offer that as another option? All right, whatever. It's just silly little things that don't add up to the whole. And then Mando goes, okay, well, the armor's like, now you need to take him through his trials to make him into the person that he needs to be. Didn't look like a Vizsla's kid that went through the trials on another planet. I mean, he could have, but just didn't look like that. Anyway, so Mando leaves with finally his Naboo starfighter ship that we haven't seen for a long time. Where was it? I don't even remember. No idea. And goes back to Grief Karga's planet, gets a little shack at the plot of land. Before that, he talks to the New Republic, the old fighter pilot guy that we've seen in so much stuff, and goes, hey, I want to work as a bounty hunter again. It's like, oh, shocking, finally, we're back to the concept here. And on a case-by-case basis, I decide, and that way I can help out the New Republic and get some money, and we don't tell the New Republic, and you just pay me on the side. It's pretty funny. And then they take an IG droid's head, and when they show back up at Grief Karga's planet, they have somehow, with the Babu Frick little aliens, rebuilt IG-11, and he is now going to be their new sheriff, the new marshal, which is dumb, because again, at the very beginning of this, whenever he was trying to rebuild the droid, they said his memory circuits are broken. They do not work. They are done. You have to get new memory circuits, and it will not be the same droid. And then it's like, I am IG-11. You're like, inconsistencies again. Inconsistencies. And so we get to the end of the episode with Mando at his little shack and Grogu right in front, levitating a frog, or Star Wars' version of it, and focus in on them in a little circle and then fade to black. Cool. All right. Unfortunately, this is Stir Wars. The more I talk through it, right, I was gonna go like, if we were doing like Angry Joe Show does 0 through 10, I was almost at a 6, but the more I think about it, for an episode, maybe it by itself is a 6, but it's, as a season finale, it's a 5 at best. It's bad. It's not good. It's below average. And it's... Okay, so that's what's really frustrating too, whenever you listen to other YouTubers' stuff on it, and sometimes, like, with what I just said, like, they go, this was good, and then they don't talk about certain little pieces that it's like, evaluate this. And I haven't finished all the review that they have, which I'm glad to listen to them, because I appreciate their thoughts on it, because it helps me go through pieces of it as well and see if I've missed some things. But it is interesting when they miss like details like this, and I'm intrigued to hear from the rest of their review or their breakdown if they do talk about the mouse droids or not, because so far they haven't. And I hope that they do, because that is a seriously dumb thing. It's not that mouse droids necessarily need to be smart, but their whole job, it seems like, is some sort of maybe maintenance and also sounding off alarms and getting help. And they didn't do that. They went and got other mouse droids, which doesn't actually do anything. So, if you've watched the episode, let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it your favorite episode? Is it your least favorite episode? Somewhere in the middle. I definitely think there was episodes in the season that were far worse, but this, for a season finale, was not good. It was bad. Because it just doesn't hit all the details that it needs to. And it doesn't follow through on logic things that it needs to. But yet the visuals are really cool. I don't know what you do with that. I've been Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. Like and subscribe. Take care. Bye, y'all.